The Rolex wristwatches symbolized precision, joy, luxury, and riches. However, the same cannot be said about the man that created the famous brand. Before Hans Wilsdorf became well known as the founder of Rolex and Tudor, he was once a poor orphan from Kulmbach, Germany, who tragically lost both of his parents at a very young age. As if that wasn't enough setback for Hans, his life was a mess as he continued suffering personal tragedies, from having all his inheritance stolen from the palm of his hands to witnessing the death of his first wife. This is the story of how Rolex came to be and how its eventual success came with a painful price. An early tragedy. Hans Eberhard Wilhelm Wilsdorf was born on March 22, 1881, in Kulmbach, Germany. He was the second son of a family of 3 children, and his parents, Anna and Johann Daniel Ferdinand Wilsdorf, owned a hardware business where they sold tools and household equipment. Unfortunately for Hans and his other siblings, their parents died when Hans was only 12 years old. And this tragic event left a sad mark on his life. Hans and his siblings became orphans and therefore came under the care of their aunt and uncle, who decided to sell the parents' hardware business and secure the kids' future. The uncle kept the money in a Wilsdorf trust for the children to claim once they were old enough. Early education and career beginnings. Wilsdorf attended a boarding school in Kolberg, Germany, where he excelled in mathematics and languages. He was particularly fluent in English and French, which inspired and paved the way for him to work in foreign countries. Wilsdorf's working experience began as an apprentice with an influential international pearl distribution company renowned for exporting its jewelry products globally. All his dealings with this company were the stepping stones to his future dealings. The Pearl Distribution Company was where he learned a lot about world trade, the industry strategies, and developed a keen interest in technology. His promising career began at age 20 when he moved to La Chaux de Fonds in Switzerland and worked as an English correspondent and clerk with the watch firm of Messrs. Cuno Corton, at 49, Rue Leopold Robert. Working at Cuno Corton marked Hans's entry into the watchmaking industry as the company specialized in exporting Swiss pocket watches. At Cuno Corton, he gained great insight into how the various type of watches were manufactured and developed a passion for the precision of timepieces. His role in Cuno Corton was winding hundreds of pocket watches daily and verifying that all the watches were accurate. Wilsdorf's base salary at that time was 80 Swiss francs. Changing the whole narrative, Wilsdorf and Davis, Limited. Fast track back to 1903, Hans Wilsdorf, a 22-year-old man, relocated to London, England, to work for another top-quality watch store. During this trip, his inheritance, which totaled 33,000 German gold marks, was stolen by thieves, and this proved to be a disaster for the promising watchmaker. But despite that tragic event, Hans set up the Wilsdorf and Davis watchmaking enterprise in 1905 with money from Alfred Davis, an English casemaker, and his brother-in-law. To match Davis's investment and own 50% of the company, Wilsdorf had to borrow money from his siblings since he had no money of his own after losing his inheritance 2 years earlier. But what prompted him to set up his own watch business? The main driving force for Hans setting up Wilsdorf and Davis at 83 Hatton Garden, London, was to provide top-quality timepieces at affordable market prices. But that is not all. In the early 1900s, pocket watches were ever present, while wristwatches or wristlets were frowned upon by men and mainly worn by women. The entire watch industry believed that a wristwatch would not withstand the rigors of human activity, but Hans believed in the wristwatch's limitless potential and reliability and made it his life mission to popularize and commercialize it. Wilsdorf heard about Hermann Agler in 1902 while working at La Chaux de Fonds. Agler's company was in Bienne, Switzerland, and was famous for producing incomplete watch movements for small lever escapement wristwatches called abortures that he sold to watchmakers. 3 years later, Wilsdorf traveled to Switzerland to meet with Hermann Agler and placed the largest order ever for wristlet watches. That transaction laid the groundwork for a long-standing work relationship between Rolex and Agler, creating the Rolex brand. In 1908, Hans Wilsdorf had issues finding the right name to call his new watchmaking company. He had combined the letters of the alphabet in every possible way he knew, but to no avail, as none of the names sounded right to him. But on one fateful morning, as Wilsdorf recounted in 1958, he was sitting on the upper level of a horse-drawn double-decker driving along Cheapside in London when a genie whispered the name, Rolex, in his ears. A fitting folklore name for a unique watch brand, easy to remember, simple to pronounce in all languages, and short enough to fit on the dials of the watch. A few days later, the Rolex brand was officially registered in Switzerland by Wilsdorf and Davis, signaling the gradual rise of wristlet watches and the eventual decline of pocket watches. What happened next? was the record-breaking certification from the official watch rating center in Switzerland that Hans received directly in 1910 to verify that his watches had proper chronometric precision. An accurate time measurement certificate for Rolex wristwatches. It was only one direction from then on for Hans and Rolex: up. On the 15th of July, 1914, Hans Wilsdorf was awarded a small 25mm Rolex wristwatch with a Class A precision by the British Kew Observatory. It was a groundbreaking achievement because the award was reserved for marine chronometers before Hans got it. Expansion and revolutionary breakthrough. After World War I broke out, Wilsdorf and Davis Limited had expanded with more than 40 employees on their payroll, and Hans had changed the company's name to the Rolex Watch Company. But then something unfavorable happened in 1915. The British government introduced a 33% customs duty, and Wilsdorf had to move the company's headquarters to Geneva, Switzerland, in 1919, where it remains today. The company in Geneva was where he established the new brand called Tudor in 1946. Tudor is a similar high-quality, lower-priced watch brand. Hans Wilsdorf changed the course of the watchmaking industry forever by inventing the first waterproof wristwatch and the first self-winding wristwatch. The first of numerous breakthroughs came in 1927 after the company launched the world's first commercially workable waterproof watch called the Rolex Oyster. The testimony concept is a well-established marketing and advertising strategy that involves using a celebrity's name and image to endorse a product or brand to the public. Hans used this strategy to launch the Rolex Oyster. Mercedes Glietzer, a young typist and the first Rolex brand ambassador, announced that she would be wearing Wilsdorf's waterproof watch to swim the English Channel and that the Rolex watch would be right on time once she emerged from the water. True to her words, after swimming for about 15 hours, the Rolex Oyster worn around her neck remained in perfect condition and was right on time. Glietzer and Rolex both made headlines for the extraordinary feat dubbed the greatest triumph in watchmaking on the front page of the Daily Mail newspaper. Later on, Wilsdorf turned to the land speed king Sir Malcolm Campbell as the next Rolex brand ambassador. Sir Malcolm set 9 land speed records between 1924 and 1935. Rolex's breakthrough success continued in 1931 with the launch and release of Rolex Perpetual, the world's first self-winding watch to use a 360-degree winding rotor. The rotor turns the mainspring of the watch 360-degree round and supplies it with mechanical energy. This innovative watch movement remains at the center of almost all the modern automatic watches from the factory today. Another tragedy and second marriage. In 1944, during the Second World War, Hans Wilsdorf suffered another personal tragedy as his beloved wife, Florence Wilsdorf, passed on. In honor of her loving memory, he set up the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. Hans remarried Bertha, Betty, Mettler, and some believed she was partly responsible for the Cyclops magnification lens edition on Rolex watches. Rumors have it that she had difficulty reading the small date window on the watch dial. Upon his eventual death in 1960, the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation inherited 100% of his ownership stake in Rolex. Creating the foundation helped to ensure that a portion of Rolex's profits always goes to charity, and that Rolex can never be sold nor distributed to outside prospective shareholders. Hans Wilsdorf's greatest legacy was the beautiful work upon which he built the billion-dollar wristwatch empire at a time when there were no markets for men's wristwatches, and the work ethic he put in place to push back the limits of the possible and pull forward the limitlessness of the impossible achieved through the luxury Rolex brand. The little orphan from Kulmbach, Germany, had a dream, worked on it and succeeded in building a wristwatch empire despite the odds being against him. The significant risk he took made him a living icon whose name will remain for generations to come.